What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Bootleg Football Podcast. I am your host, Brett Coleman, here without my wonderful co-host, EJ Snyder. Just kind of doing a little bit of an introduction here. The entirety of this episode is a fantastic interview that we did with our buddy Mark Schofield, who you might know his work from the Sco Show. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff for Pat's Pulpit, USA Today, you name it. He's been around. Just a phenomenal draft analyst. And we kind of just bullshitted for over an hour on all things draft. It was a great conversation, so much so that EJ and I, when we recorded it a few weeks ago, we decided right then and there that that would be its own episode. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show. It's a great interview. Here's our buddy Mark Schofield. We're joined here by Mark Schofield, staff writer and quarterback guru for the USA Today's Touchdown Wire, also hosts the Sco Show podcast for Pat's Pulpit, SB Nation's Patriots site. EJ and I, also being veterans of SB Nations ourselves, we've been watching and enjoying Mark's work for quite a long time. Also played quarterback at Wesleyan University, by the way, little known fact, 4-year letter winner, and also reformed lawyer, self-described. Mark, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for joining us. How's your draft season been?
I'm alive, Brett. Guys, Brett, EJ, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be alive. I've said it before on the Bird app that this draft season might be the one that finally ends me.
You say that every year.
Lauren Cox, who hosts Locked On Bears.
Yeah, Lauren's
when,
awesome.
when I tweeted that recently, he was like, I feel like I read this tweet every March. And it's like, yeah, you probably have, because every draft cycle pretty much gets me one step closer to the grave. It still beats working for a living, I'll say that. But it's been a grind. Some of the takes, especially the closer we get, are, ludicrous speed. Let's just put it that way. We've gotten to the point, it's like the Nate Peterman cycle of the draft, where you remember Davis Webb, you remember Tom Savage, you remember Nathan Peterman, these quarterbacks that get that buzz that's like, man, somebody's going in the first round out of this group. This year, maybe it's Davis Mills. I mean, we've heard Davis Mills buzz in the past couple of days, which is buzz, I guess. But that's where we're at, guys. And we still got, 4 weeks to go? 4 weeks from tomorrow.
3-ish. It's coming, but I'm with you. This season is always, it's a ton of fun. It's what a lot of us really enjoy and live for. And we have these chats. I'm lucky enough to have been able to know you for a while now. And I've learned so much talking to you about quarterbacks, just like one of our previous guests, Brandon Thorne, talking to Brandon about offensive line. For me, I'm just a sponge in those moments. It's amazing. And we're just excited to get a chance to talk to you about all these guys, because there's always a lot of focus on quarterback. Quarterback is top of the draft, top of the talk, why people trade, the intrigue about who's going where. If somebody gets drafted, it shakes the entire league. So we're so happy to have you and be able to talk about all of these players, because there's a bunch of them, and we'll get into it. How do you feel this class compares to the previous draft class?
I mean, I what's interesting about this group is it's tremendous at the top. I mean, the top 5 guys, you can put them in almost any order you want. I could see a pathway to all of them being successful NFL quarterbacks early in their careers. Now, look, they will need, the right fit, the right landing spot. Some are more scheme dependent than others, but that group at the top I really like. Usually, though, I'm the guy that's like, well, look, these guys at the top are fantastic, but let me tell you about Brett Rippon, all right? Let me tell you about Brett Rippon. Because Brett Rippon, my friends, I was on the top of that hill. I'm still there. But what I'm trying to say is, usually I'm the guy that's like this. Forget about the guys at the top, the guys at the end of the draft, the guys you'll be hearing their name called on day 3. There are some diamonds here. This isn't exactly that year. This isn't exactly the year where you're like, if you miss on a quarterback in the first round, you'll find somebody in the second, or you'll find somebody in the third that is a starter caliber type player, but maybe they'll slide for one reason or another, like a Drew Lock who slid, or some other quarterbacks that have slid in the draft. This isn't the year for that. Mel Kiper said it a couple of weeks ago, and I think he's exactly right. If you need a quarterback, it's either the top 5 or bust right now, because guys like Mond, guys like Mills, guys like Newman, guys like Trask, they have things that they could do. but they're all, I think, more developmental types than anything else. And you might get one of them to an environment like, say, Kyle Trask somehow lands in Tampa Bay and gets to learn from Bruce Arians and Brian Leftwich and Tom Brady. Like, sure, maybe that could work, but it's still a roll of the dice. I think teams that need quarterback and have a pressing need at the position, they have to get one of these 5. And that's why you're hearing and seeing so much movement. That's why the 49ers traded 2 future firsts and this year's first to maybe draft Mac Jones. I mean, that's where we're at, because it's these guys are bust.
Is that why you feel like Carolina gave up some picks for Sam Darnold? Is because they didn't think they were going to be able to get one because there was going to be so many trades flying? I mean, it's possible we could go 1, 2, 3, 4 to start
Brett,
this thing with quarterback. And
I think once the Niners came up to 3, they looked at it and like, we might at best get QB5, and maybe their QB5 is Lance, maybe it's Jones, whoever, but they're like, we don't know if that's not a certainty right now. So maybe we'll just take a shot on Sam Darnold because we don't want to leave it to fate. We don't want to have to pay what it might cost to go up and get QB5 when we can roll the chances, roll the dice with Sam Darnold. And maybe, look, if anybody can fix Sam Darnold, it might be Joe Brady. We've seen what Joe Brady can do conceptually, schematically, the things that he can do, the empty formations, the half-field reads, and things like that he did with Joe Burrow at LSU, some of which he did with Teddy Bridgewater last year. I think that could help Sam Darnold. I think, look, you look at Robbie Anderson, obviously Sam Darnold, Robbie Anderson know each other, Christian McCaffrey. You could start filling in some weapons around, DJ Moore. Could be an offense that could come together. And so I think that was Carolina's decision. That was their thought process, which was just, we could settle for QB5. We might have to trade up to get QB5. Why don't we take some agency? We'll trade for Sam Darnold. And now we can go in a couple of different directions at 8. If we see 4 QBs, a tackle, and a wide receiver in front of them, and maybe another quarterback, Kyle Pitts could fall to them. What does that Carolina offense look like? Ooh. Kyle Pitts with Joe Brady and those weapons. I mean, I don't know if Kyle Pitts falls all the way to 8, but he might.
Or you dangle Kyle Pitts to Jerry Jones and say, give me the picks back that we just spent on Darnold. You can have one shiny, brand new Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. I mean, sign Jerry up, and meanwhile, the rest of the scouting department is like trying to get to the phone because they're like, look, we need a quarterback. We can't cover anybody. But Jerry's like, no, I got this, guys.
Oh, God. Have you given any thought to, let's say you're the Cincinnati Bengals, quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4. You have Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, and Penei Sewell on the board at Cincinnati at 5. Where are you going?
I can understand. Like, I know that's been the debate right now is, Sewell or Chase, right? And you've seen like people have mocked up graphics of Burrow getting sacked while he's trying to throw to Chase because nobody can protect him. We all thought they were going to go offensive line. They've given themselves the out, though. They've given themselves the out of, with Reef, yes, Jonah Williams, they've got 2 tackles. Like, I could understand why they might go in a different direction, but I think you have to learn the lesson of last year, which was you had to go empty and try to get the ball out of Burrow's hands quickly because you couldn't protect him. And if you can't protect the quarterback, especially the young asset, you're just asking for trouble. You're asking for a David Carr situation. And that's the last thing I think you want if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. So I'd still go Sewell. I mean, it's hard to pass on Pitts. It's hard to pass on Chase. But I think, as much as you'd like to get weapons for Burrow, you got to protect the guy too because he can't throw from his back. And yes, you just added a tackle, but maybe Sewell, you can kick him inside. You got to figure out the front 5 before anything else.
Yeah, and you can do that in this draft. That's the funky thing about this is usually tackle is the position that resembles what you described quarterback as in this draft, which is if you need a top flight protector at tackle, you're getting him in the first half, first 2/3 of the first round. And after that, yeah, there's project guys and guys that can develop. And this year, you're going to be able to get guys that start on the edge in round 2. So that leaves the sort of conundrum for the Bengals of is Pitts or Chase good enough to take that gamble and say these guys are the weapons because there's wide receivers later too.
Yeah, I mean the tricky one would be Pitts, right? Because the tight end class, it's really Pitts and maybe Pat Freiermuth, and after that, I just don't know. I just don't know.
It's a shelf.
And if you pass on Pitts at 5, you're threading that needle that Freiermuth is there at 38, and he might not be. So I think that's the tougher one because, if you pass on the tackle at 5, Dylan Raditz, Liam Eichenberg, Jalen Mayfield, like Teven Jenkins, like you get deeper into this tackle class, there are options there.
Yep.
If you pass on the wide receiver, okay, so you don't get Chase. Well, De'Ami Brown might be there at 38, or Nico Collins might be there at 38, or some of these slot guys, maybe Elijah Moore somehow falls to 38. Well, pairing him with T. Higgins, that's mighty nice. So you can go in different directions. So I think almost it's like the more difficult one would be passing on Pitts because he's the one. Like, if you need a tight end, did you pass on him?
I've been watching all these SEC DBs, and so invariably you end up watching a lot of Kyle Pitts when you watch SEC DBs. And I mean, it's a different species, man. It's
that's
a different kind of guy.
All these defenses, they were like, okay, JC Horn, look, you got to go cover Kyle Pitts. Like, you got to go do that because we don't have everybody. Like, Pitts caught a touchdown on a slant route working against somebody else, not JC Horn. And
Mukuamu, yeah.
Yeah, and like the rest of the game, it was like, okay, well, wherever he goes, JC, you got to go there. I mean, that's the kind of player he is.
We were just talking about that play last night or night before because he runs a slant against Mukuamu. Watch what happens right after that. Mukuamu literally looks at Horn and goes, and Horn's like, I don't know. They just look at each other like, Horn's like, you're not going to cover it.
It started early in that game because they had the back shoulder
against Horn.
And Horn's like literally riding him out of bounds, like played it perfectly, and it doesn't matter. Because I mean, Pitts has the wingspan of a 737. Like you can't stop the guy.
But then you got draft Twitter giving Kyle Trask credit for that throw. And it's like there's one human being on planet Earth that even makes that throw work. And it's Kyle Pitts. It's like, what do you want? What do you want?
This way. 3 of us could put that throw up there, and Kyle Pitts was going to come down with it. Like that's what he is. And pass it on him, I think that's good. That's a tough pill to swallow. I mean, even these teams, look, even Jacksonville at 1 is probably looking at Kyle Pitts and thinking, maybe, right? Like Gardner Minshew isn't that bad. Like we could. Kyle Pitts,
you can see the guys in the draft room going, Gardner's is equal to Trask.
Like, could we trade a pick in the top of the 3rd round for Jimmy G and roll with Kyle Pitts? And I mean, at least you wouldn't be bad. I mean,
you wouldn't be bad. I mean, you start thinking about
entertaining.
You got Pitts, you got Robinson, you got Chark, you got Chenault.
Oh, and Colin Johnson too.
Yeah.
He's fun. He started to come on at the end of last year.
You're starting to piece together an offense that's almost quarterback agnostic.
Oh man,
I'm just saying.
I love the chaos, Mark. I love the chaos.
I mean, look, I am all for like draft chaos. Like, I'm all for Urban Meyer being like, you know what? I really like this Mac Jones kid. I don't want Kyle Shanahan getting his hands on Mac Jones. So I'm going to draft Mac Jones 1, and then just all of draft Twitter just having a complete meltdown because Mac Jones is slowly tearing at the fabric of every group chat, every group of friends, every website. Their writers are starting to fight over Mac Jones because there are people out there now that are just like, I hope he succeeds because he'll make us all look like idiots. So yeah, I'm all for chaos, EJ.
I haven't been monitoring. I haven't been monitoring Fucillo, but I got to find his Twitter feed, the Niners Nation Twitter feed, when they inevitably take Matt. Because even Schefter's saying it now. It's like they're taking Matt.
Niners Twitter right now is literally on a knife's edge. Like you could, if you want to instigate Niners Twitter, just say that you heard from somebody that knows Kyle Shanahan that it's indeed Mac Jones, and just step back. I mean, it's literally just like tossing the match. You're pulling the pin there, man. It's chaos over there. I mean, it's like the fight scene in dodgeball. I mean, there's just killing each other over there,
and which has caused a ripple effect in Falcons Twitter because now they're like, Justin Fields is going to be there at 4.
Yeah, I did a show
Justin
today
Fields is going to be there at 4.
I did a show today with Aaron Freeman or Locked On Falcons. We did it. We recorded a 2-part quarterback show, and the underlying tremor was, did the Falcons pass on Kyle Pitts because they could get Justin Fields? Like,
it's the only player I would pass on Pitts for.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can make a case for Chase versus Pitts depending on.
I mean, I think for Atlanta, you look at Arthur Smith, 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. Like the Atlanta path for me, since they did this Matt Ryan restructure, so you probably tied yourself to Matt Ryan for 2 seasons. You draft Pitts at 4. You've got Hayden Hurst and Kyle Pitts as your tight ends, Julio and Ridley as your receivers, and then Gurley. And if you could get Javonte Williams at the top of the second round, suddenly you're putting together what Arthur Smith had in Tennessee. And you can make that work with Matt Ryan for a season or 2. The other thing to keep in mind with Atlanta is, they'll have to get into the quarterback market down the road. So when everybody like the Patriots on up is calling them to come up to 4 to draft Justin Fields, you could get those future first round picks and give yourself that opportunity down the road 2 years from now to fix the quarterback position overnight.
Yeah, because you're going to have DJ Uiagalelei, Bryce Young. The 2023 quarterback class is going to be one just like this one, which is coincidentally when Matt Ryan becomes cuttable.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yeah. And if you get a first round pick, I actually think that's the play, because if you're at 4 and the entire world wants to come to 4 to get whoever's left, especially if Fields is there, you do exactly that. You pay it forward. You give yourself a first round pick next year and the year after. And if Matt Ryan falls off a cliff this year, great. You keep him as the veteran mentor because you have to, because you can't get out from under the money, and you have your new guy next year. Or if he plays amazing and you're fine with your backup, you wait 2 years and you're looking at the quarterback class that Brett's talking about.
Yep.
And you just got yourself out of a hole that right now you kind of painted yourself into with $42 million dead next year.
That's a lot of money.
You're kind of stuck riding with that. But if you could say, hey, I'll just defer this, plus you're going to get a decent pick. You go down, they go down 7-8 picks. They're going to pick up picks for the next 2 years out of that.
Oh yeah.
So.
I mean, especially look, if Fields is there at 4, it's on.
It's
on. Yeah.
Speaking of the dodgeball fight. Yeah.
I mean, New England's going to want to come up. Denver's going to want to come up. There's always that random team out of nowhere that we're not even thinking about. I mean, the Mahomes year, maybe we thought Kansas City would draft a quarterback, but we didn't think they were going to make that move. I mean, there's always that random team out of nowhere that's like, oh, apparently Tennessee wants to get aggressive to get a quarterback. Why?
Oh,
okay.
Man. If Fields is there, Ryan Pace is going to show up with 4 first-round picks.
He better. He
will. He'll just be like, guys, is this how you do this?
Right.
Here's all 4. Is that good enough? Yeah.
Can I throw in Mitch Trubisky still? I know he's in Buffalo, but please. Can I still package him as part of this deal?
Well, you're a New England guy. You're plugged into the Patriots scene up there. Do you think Bill would do it? You think Bill would give up 3 first-round picks for Justin Fields?
It's funny, Brett, because, I know Lombardi was out, we're doing this Thursday night. And Lombardi was out today saying it's not the Patriots' way to trade up. It's not the Patriots' way to go and be aggressive and give up future assets to get a player that's not graded that highly on their board. It's also not the Patriots' way to spend, the gross domestic product of Liechtenstein in one free agency cycle. But that's what they just did. They filled in a lot of needs. They had needs at tight end. I hope to God they fixed that with those 2 guys. They had needs, sort of a backup safety corner. Jalen Mills can kind of be that. They obviously had needs at wide receiver. Whether you think Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne fix that or not, they threw assets in that direction. I still think they addressed wide receiver at some point in this draft. What's left is QB. I mean, that's the big question mark. And I know they have Cam back. And look, say what you want about Cam last year, but he had COVID. He signed late. Like, it was strange set of circumstances. And maybe they can get him back to where he was, say, in 2017, 2018. Maybe you're not getting 2015 Cam back. I think that guy's gone.
Yeah.
So maybe they can get that, but maybe not. And either way, let's say Cam has this fantastic season and he's back to his 2017 form. He's on a 1-year deal. Like, you're either going to have to pay him a ton of money or have somebody waiting. And since you filled in so many other needs, why not be aggressive, go against what you've done, go against what everybody thinks you're going to do, and get to the top of the board and get a quarterback? What does everybody always say about Belichick? He zigs when everybody else zags, right?
For sure.
Everybody's expected to zig, to trade down, to be, his standard self, and draft a safety in the second round after they traded down. And, I'll just be crying into my beers and everything else. this is the year where I think he finally, zags and goes and gets aggressive, particularly if Fields is there at 4. I think he would.
I wouldn't doubt it. I think last year hurt him. I really do.
Watching Tom Brady throw in the Lombardi over the bay drunkenly to, his tight end, Cameron Brate, like that hurt. I guarantee you, look, you don't get to be the guy with 8, 9 rings on your boat, and living the high life if you're not a super competitive person, and that's Bill Belichick and that's Tom Brady. These are two supremely competitive people. And I am sure that watching Brady win while finishing 7-9 and struggling the way they did has him like never again. I am not going to lose again. I'm not going to have a losing record again. I'm going to be aggressive. They spend so much money. You filled in so many holes. Go fill in the last big question mark, which is quarterback.
So you're thinking when Tom Brady and the Buccaneers come up to Foxborough for the rematch or the grudge match of all grudge matches, you're going to roll out young Justin Fields as a rookie and say, look, Tom, he's going to break all your records.
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. And I've said on my show, I've said elsewhere, look, if they somehow get, Justin Fields or even Trey Lance, it's a buy the jersey moment because I think they're both, incredibly talented quarterbacks. But I do think that, there's a motivation factor because as much as Belichick says, I don't read, my snap face or whatever he calls things, he sees it all. He hears it all. Like he knows that everybody out there is saying, oh, well, clearly it was Tom Brady. It wasn't Bill Belichick. It was Tom Brady. Yeah. Try telling that to Bill Belichick that you weren't the architect. You weren't the reason for 6 Super Bowl titles. Yeah. He's going to want to get Justin Fields or Trey Lance, but yeah.
How do you have these quarterbacks stacked, by the way, since you mentioned Lance as well?
Yeah, the top 5 for me is Lance, Lawrence, Fields, Wilson, Lance, then Jones. And really that top 4, if you want to tell me that Zach Wilson is your QB1, okay. Like I can see why. If you want to tell me Lance is QB1 or Fields or Lawrence, any one of those guys, like I could see it. Like they're all incredibly talented and they're all, I think, generally scheme diverse, system transcendent type of players that, if you take Justin Fields, I think his best fit is a spread vertical system. But if you want to drop him into Kyle Shanahan's offense, he can run it just fine. Like I'm not worried about it. Trey Lance, I think he could run Kyle Shanahan's offense now. It's a similar playbook, but he could run New England's. He could run Chicago's, that sort of more pure West Coast kind of offense. All these guys, I think, are pretty scheme diverse. I think Jones is a solid quarterback who's more scheme dependent, who's more external factors dependent. Like, I think guys like Lance, like Wilson, like Fields, and like Lawrence, like they could transcend the playmakers around them. They can make the players around them better at the next level. With Jones, I think it's more a guy you win with type of player, but he's the safe floor in this draft. And I think the reason why the Niners are linked with them beyond the whole Kirk Cousins 2.0 thing is if you think you're close as a team and you just want the guy that can run the offense and sort of get you over the hump, that might be Jones. If you think that with Ayuk and with, Trent Williams back, with Juszczyk, with Kittle, like you've got enough weapons on offense and you're good enough on defense. You just need a guy that's not going to make you look foolish, that can run your offense, that can make the reads and make the throws. I mean, that's Mac Jones. So I understand the connection there. I think there's a lot to give up, but if you think that's the missing piece, then okay.
Yeah, like all quarterback trades, if it works, nobody will care about the compensation.
Nobody's going to care about the compensation, right?
And if it doesn't, everybody will care about the compensation.
I mean, if Mitchell Trubisky brought a Lombardi to the Windy City.
That's what I said the night he was drafted. I said, if he wins, it's all's forgiven. And it wasn't that much of a trade up anyways. But if he doesn't, guess what? Nobody's ever going to let him forget it. And it wasn't even about Watson or Mahomes at that point. It was literally about the picks.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, if he leads the Bears to the playoffs every year and threatens for a Super Bowl, Chicago's going to love him and carry him around on their shoulders. Nobody's going to care. But the bottom line is you bomb out, go down in a ball of flames. Everybody's going to be like, how many picks?
And part of it is we mythologize, and I put myself obviously in this category, but we mythologize the draft so much, right?
For
Where
sure.
it's like the allure of the future pick is like, wow, who knows what that could have been? That could have been Spencer Rattler. That could have been Sam Howell.
It could have been a boat.
Yeah, it's the whole boat analogy. Man, I have used that so many times this entire draft cycle, particularly with this Mac Jones thing. But Jimmy Garoppolo is great, but Mac Jones could be Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, that's literally what they're doing. But no, we mythologize future draft picks where if like a team trades away a 2023 fourth rounder, people are like, well, I was just watching this tackle from where was it? UCF the other day, who's coming out in 2 years. That could be that guy. Like we start to think like all of these players hit because we invest so much time. And by God, if I'm going to spend 15 hours watching this tight end class, and studying Matt Bushman, obviously I have to study Matt Bushman because if I don't, Thor Nystrom is going to kill me. Okay. Thor has my cell phone number. He knows where I live. I don't need Thor coming after me because he loves Matt Bushman. But I mean, if you're going to put that kind of time and investment, you think that all of these guys can hit. You find pathways for all these guys to hit. The hit rate, even on first round picks, isn't great. So if you could trade up and it works, awesome.
Yeah, and we were just talking about the Bengals. If you can trade back and pick up extra shots, that's the deal.
That's the other thing too. Like the smart teams are the ones that give themselves more bites at the apple, right? And that's typically been New England's MO. Throughout the Brady Belichick run, which is we'll trade back, we'll pick up a couple of extra fourth round picks here. We'll just throw darts. Sometimes these pan out, sometimes these don't. But the more cracks at it you get, the better. Because if every team hits on 40% of the picks, well, if you've made 10 picks, that's 4 players.
Yeah. Well, what do you think Bill would rather have right now, N'Keal Harry or 2 second-round picks?
Oh my God, I think. They have a problem, man, evaluating the outside receiver position.
They're the anti-Steelers.
Yeah, they can't get it right. They can get slots right? Like you look at Julian Edelman, you look at the trade for Welker, even Jacoby Myers in a sense. I think he's got suited in the slot. Like they can get the like change of direction type skills, the 3-cone stuff. They've got that figured out. They can't figure out the outside receiver position to save their lives. I mean, Chad Johnson, Chad Ochocinco, Chad Jackson, like obviously N'Keal Harry, it's been a mess for them. And that's why you talk to Patriots fans about maybe Rashad Bateman, Nico Collins, DME Brown, and they're all deer in the headlights in that moment. They're like, they're terrified.
Don't do it.
They know the offense needs an X. The offense needs an X right now. They're just terrified of who's going to make that decision. Apparently in the past couple of days we've learned that it was Belichick who made the call on Harry over the scouts. The scouts wanted to go in a different direction. Maybe Belichick says, all right, fine, I can't evaluate wide receivers. I'm just the greatest, coach of all time. I just can't evaluate outside receivers. So I'll let you guys do it. I don't know, but they got to figure out outside receiver, man, because it's a train wreck. And I thought last year with Harry, contested catch guy, back shoulder guy, Cam Newton, this was perfect. Never happened. Never materialized. And now you're hoping you can get maybe a 4th in return for him.
I never understood why people saw him as a legitimate, like contested catch Alshon Jeffrey clone in the first place. Because I remember when he was at ASU, he's getting bullied by a 19-year-old sophomore corner from Oregon that's probably selling insurance right now. Yeah. And it's like where I'm looking at DK Metcalf, turning Lonnie Johnson into a puddle of goo. Yeah. And I'm like, how does that decision even get made?
It's crazy. I do think, and this is something I've started to come around on, the idea of like a contested catch receiver in college. Like, what is that really? It's a guy that can't separate. Like, it's a guy that can't get open. And
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that moment.
And if your game is 50-50 balls against the kids that are going to be selling insurance in 2 years, what's going to happen when that guy is Jalen Ramsey? That's suddenly a 20-80 ball. Like that's not a way to like make a living in the NFL as a wide receiver. And so, when you start getting to, you're watching receivers and you're like, oh man, this guy's a great contested catch receiver playing in the Big Ten. Then maybe it's kind of time to move on and watch the next guy on your list because it's probably not going to work for him in the NFL.
So contested catch receiver in the Big Ten. What do you think of Nico Collins after the weight drop?
I know that there are people that really like Nico Collins. I know there are people that are high on him. There's an aspect to his game that I just can't get beyond, and it's this. And it maybe this is my old failed quarterback coming through. But I look at two guys, De'Ami Brown, Nico Collins. I watch De'Ami Brown. He'll run a curl route. Ball doesn't come his way. He will go back to the line of scrimmage in the course of that play if he has to try to get himself open. He does not stop working on a snap. Nico Collins runs the same route, stops, turns, ball doesn't come to him. That's it. All right, I'm going to stay here.
Good luck.
Good luck. And I literally at one point wrote down, will you freaking run? Like in my notes, I literally wrote that down. And so that's my hang up with Nico Collins. Like I think that with the weight drop and some of the movement skills and some of what he offers in the vertical passing game, I understand why people like them, like Nico Collins. But for me, like those are the two that I look at and I'm like, give me DME Brown. Like I much prefer DME Brown. I know he's had some issues with drops. You know, you see that vertical route against NC State where he, beats the press, stacks the receiver. It's like, man, this is it. This is my thesis. This is my closing. Oh my God, he dropped the ball. Like, oh man.
And that was my problem because like De'Ami Brown and Nico Collins, I think are going to go in fairly similar parts of the draft.
Yeah.
But they're completely opposite receivers. But the thing is, the key word is receiver.
Yeah.
And catching the ball is an important part.
Yeah,
it's almost like
job.
Will Fuller.
I mean, like it's kind of the job description there, right? Get open, catch the ball. You could get open, but you can't catch it. I mean, there's a part of me that likes to think that drops are noisy, and since he's getting open and he's separated and he's beating the press, like he'll figure that out. But I mean, the last thing you want to do is draft a receiver and he just can't catch. I mean, so let's put it this way: whichever one the Patriots do draft, you know what the handup's going to be. They'll draft DME Brown. He'll never be able to catch again. You'll draft Nico Collins and he'll never be able to separate again because he'll just stop running his routes.
So between Aguilar and De'Ami Brown, what's the over for drops per game for the New England offense?
God. Probably eight. Maybe hammer the over.
Bootleg football, your source for prop bets of sadness.
The pathetic natures of the game, yes.
Who would you say can be any position, any round? Who are your pound the table guys for this class? Where it's like, if you're a GM, you do not want to leave the draft without these three guys. Who would they be?
At the receiver position, a guy that I absolutely love is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And
Modern day alumni, just saying, modern day alumni.
I see, like, I've seen some different comps for him. I see Julian Edelman 2.0. I see a guy that will always get open. I see a guy that is supremely confident in his hands. I see a guy that will literally fight you to the death and want to like rip your heart out, like supremely competitive. And, I think that matters so much in this sport. So at the receiver position, it's him. He's one of the guys that I was like, look, he's not like a top 10 receiver, but I have to write about him. I have to include him in the write-ups. We were doing top 11 at each position. I extended it to 14 so I could get him in. And Amari Rogers, who like late day 3, like a similar type of guy. I mean, probably not even late day 3, probably early day 3, but he's a guy that I really like. Some others, Cameron Sample, the Tulane edge.
Who would love him.
Yeah, the hands. I loved what he did at the Senior Bowl. He's probably more of a later round guy, and maybe you're sort of putting too much into what he did at the Senior Bowl. But I really like some of what he did. Peyton Turner too, the Houston edge who I was watching recently. I really sort of like him. Defensively, it's weird. This linebacker class is so weird, and it's hard to say that a guy like Xavier Collins is a pound the table guy because he's going in the first round. But I do think that there's a definite role for him in today's NFL, even if he's more of the between the tackles type of linebacker, because I do think his athleticism is, his length, man. I saw a play where he's just in curl flat. Quarterback tries to get it over him and he can't. He's just like,
yeah.
Well, actually, he did because he tipped the ball and some other guy still caught it. And then you watch him against Navy, like trying to fight off these cut blocks from these offensive linemen running, all the flexbone stuff that they do, and he's showing the athleticism. He's hurdling these guys left and right. So Collins certainly intrigues me. The one weird thing, though, is I don't really have a pound the table guy outside of the top 5 at quarterback. Like, if you were going to tell me that, look, you have to say, plant your flag, one of these later round quarterbacks, who would you plant the flag on? And even that's really hard. There are 2 that I think interest me the most. One is Davis Mills, and we were talking about him before the show. And I think if you have not watched Davis Mills, all you need to do is watch the UCLA game, because you will see early in the game, he's ripping some seam routes, he's making some NFL throws, and you're like, man, this guy, this could work. And then late in the game, he's throwing these interceptions where if they simply spin the coverage, he's like,
he doesn't know what to do.
He's baffled. He's like one of my cats back there. Like, what?
When safeties move, he just shits
What am I
himself.
supposed to do? I'm not sure what to do with my hands now. Like the pick 6 he threw against UCLA was just, I know Tim Jenkins, who does some really good work breaking down quarterbacks, he broke that down and talked about how he just missed the rotation, but it was just like, man, like that wasn't that complex a rotation. It wasn't exactly a Brent Venables look you're getting from there. But what I do like about that game, though, was you would have thought at that point he would have just folded the chips and said, look, I'm done. I'm out. Because we've now turned a 20-3 lead into 34-20 UCLA. We're getting rolled here. But he fought back. He showed, he's not going to quit. And if you're going to be like a later round quarterback, like you've got to have that mentality. And so he does intrigue me. There's an injury history. There's the inability to read rotated safeties issue, which is kind of going to be a big thing in the NFL. But, so he does intrigue me. Jamin Newman intrigues me because of the athleticism and the fact that I've talked to some people, and you guys have probably seen this watching him at Wake. I never imagined an offense could be at the same time quarterback friendly and quarterback unfriendly. But that's that Wake Forest offense, because, you see him. And they're building in pump fakes, they're building in RPOs and one read designs and scheming guys open. You're like, man, this is great. But then you see him like take the pistol snap and the shotgun snap and like walk with the running back to scrimmage. Then he's like walking towards traffic.
And guys are like,
yeah. I was saying the other day, it's like I've never seen an offense try to manufacture pressure on their quarterback, but that's what they did. And
you have now.
And it's not like they're asking them to then just like pull and throw over the top. It's like, no, you have to then pull and throw that glance route from that base in such a tight window. But he was able to do it. And so a box that he automatically checks is, he can make off-platform throws because he has to. Like that's the offense.
You got to basically just do a jump pass over the line.
Seriously. I mean, shades of Tebow back when he was in Florida, when Urban Meyer was like, I don't need him to do anything. I don't care if he can make an anticipation throw. He can just throw jump passes and we'll win the SEC. So, but I mean, those are 2 quarterbacks that kind of intrigue me. But as I was saying earlier, there's no Brett Rippon in this class, friends.
So what's your opinion on Kellen Mond? Because EJ is a big Kellen Mond guy.
Look, he's my QB6. Like I see it. And I don't like the Kellen Mond experience is you just turn on the first quarter of the Florida game, like first drive. Okay. First play, cover 4, static coverage. There's motion, there's shifting, and the coverage isn't moving. They're just like, look, man, we're running cover 4. Like, we're not hiding it. And he throws a speed out to the right and he stares it down, and it should have been a pick 6. And it's like, man, you know what it is. Just get the ball out on time and rhythm. And then 2 plays later, they blitz him, and he's got a guy in his face. He's got a guy off the edge, and he somehow makes a timing and rhythm and anticipation throw on the out to move the chains on 3rd down. It's like, man, if you could just be more like the second guy and not the first guy, then we're cooking with gas. But I do think that he has potential. I do think that he has talent. And I do think that, you'd expect a guy that's played as many games as he had in the SEC would be able to read cover 4 better. But when you're talking about that dart throw in the 3rd or 4th rounds, like, I'll bet on that athleticism. I'll bet on that arm talent and him being able to figure it out, and some of the flashes that he's shown of the anticipation and rhythm and things like that. So I get it.
Yeah, as a qualifying statement, I'm a big Kellen Mond guy for exactly that. You're out of the top 5, you're taking a dart throw, you're hoping for somebody that can hold the clipboard, develop, be a 1 or 2 game winner if your starter goes down. That's the guy I think Kellen Mond can be in pretty short order. Again, right landing spot, right coaching, right system. And you said it about Florida. We talked about the Alabama game going back and forth. Brett and I were going back and forth because I was like, again, looking at the second tier, I kind of like Kellen Mond for this, and this. And yes, I get the consistency argument. And yes, I get the improvement argument. He has improved. The consistency is still not where you want it to be, but it's better than it was. A lot of people made up their mind about Kellen Mond in year 1 or 2 because he's been playing there for 4 years. And they were like, big athletic guy, doesn't do this well. I know what he is. And they stopped looking.
Yeah.
But you look at the middle, right about from middle second quarter to about just after the third quarter ends in the Alabama game, and he is destroying them. He is tearing them limb from limb. And to Brett's point, what happens at the end of those drives, right? Yeah, doesn't end the way you want it to, but you watch him going down the field against one of the best teams in the country, and he is massacring them.
Yeah.
And it's like, bottle that.
And I always I put a lot of stock in an ability of a quarterback to go up against a Nick Saban defense, a Brett Venables defense, an Aranda defense, and have success against it, even if it's not ultimately a win or a huge production where they throw like 6 touchdown passes or whatever. If you can read those rotations, if you can understand what they're doing, because we've all tried, Brett, you were talking earlier about trying to figure out what, in addition to what Mac Jones means, but you're trying to watch Alabama and understand their coverages and stuff. If you're a quarterback and have success against those kinds of complex defenses, you get to the NFL, some of what you're seeing is like still tough, but it's not this huge leap. It's not like coming from playing against Central Arkansas and now having to diagnose defenses like that. So the fact that Mond was able to have some success against Alabama, it reminds me of a guy who had some success against Alabama, and it didn't win that game, but we all remember it, and that's Dak Prescott. That junior year, that Mississippi State Alabama game. Prescott had his own fall, but had some success against that defense, those concepts, and I think he's done pretty well for himself.
I think Mond against Saban specifically, you can tell that Mond was giving them trouble because that pick 6 that he threw, I saw that look, and it was a draw bait look, and I was like, I don't recognize this. Like, I went through my Saban playbook, like I went through everything I had, like resource wise. I was like, I don't know what this is. So I talked to Coach Kogan, who literally, he's expert on the defense. He runs it. Like, he knows everything about it. And I was like, what the hell is this? And he's like, that's new. Like, this is their Raptor personnel. It's kind of a 2 invert, but it's a drop 8 2 invert. They've never run that before. That's new, which told me Nick Saban had to bust out something he's never done before to get Kellen Mond.
Yeah.
Which I think counts for something.
That counts for something, man. It's a pick 6, but the fact when you've got Saban flipping to the back of the playbook, that means something. That means
for
something.
sure.
Yeah.
And you see that, and I don't see that from a lot of the other mid-level guys. I have people coming to me, what about Ian Book? And I'm like, what about
Ian Book?
we didn't have Sam Ellinger, and we had talked about putting him in. And look, Sam is a tough guy. He's a competitor. He's a leader. You can tell that his guys rally for him. But if you expect him again to come in against complex coverage rotations in the NFL and throw the ball 35 times and you're going to win the game, that's a bigger projection than I'm willing to make.
Yeah, I'm more willing to say that he's going to be one hell of an athletic director at the University of Texas in a couple of years. Like, I'd buy that more than Ellinger, going on and development, and like Felipe Franks or some of the other quarterbacks. Like,
what I wrote in my notes about Felipe Franks?
He's a quarterback.
I've seen a lot of quarterbaks.
That's not what I wrote. I wrote he's a baseball player playing quarterback.
That's probably a better
you watch his game, it looks like he's still playing baseball.
Yep.
And all the athleticism in the world, nothing against Felipe Franks. Tremendous athlete, right? His RS scores like 9.6 or something. It's ridiculous. But you look at him doing all the things, and that's the important thing. We talked about it with the receiver, right? The thing is catch the ball. The thing with a quarterback is quarterbacking, is making the decision, being on time, putting your guys in position. I don't care how big your arm is. If the ball gets there on time, you did the right thing. So to be a quarterback, you got to do the thing. And Felipe Franks right now is not doing the thing.
Make him a tight end.
I was
Worked for
big
Logan
on
Thomas.
Logan
Yeah,
Thomas.
Logan Thomas,
as a tight
man.
end.
I mean,
No, that's one of my biggest ever
who's
pre-draft
the other
wins.
one? Tyree Jackson's getting moved
Yeah.
to tight end now with the Eagles. So,
By the way, Logan Thomas, one of the most breathtaking arm cannons I've ever seen in my entire life.
absolute howitzer, man. I mean,
He was Josh Allen before Josh Allen, except Josh Allen could still play quarterback. But you watched him whiz the ball in college, and that was a life altering experience for me. It was like the first time I saw him like be late on a skinny post, but still fit it in there like it was nothing. I'm like, good, that's different. I mean, I knew he wasn't very good, but I was like, that's an arm. Who would you say you are? Again, could be any position, any round. Who would you say that you're lower on than the consensus quote unquote draft media?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle Trask is one. I think he's like my QB8. Like, and I don't know if that's lower the consensus because it does sort of seem like Trask is kind of really falling right now. And he's somebody that the way I've described it is he seems impervious to pressure. And I think that's just a nice way of saying he can't escape from pressure, which is kind of what I see with him. I talked about Nico Collins. I seem to be lower on him than the consensus seems to be. Other receivers that I might be lower on. I mean, a player like Rondale Moore, who I think is like my receiver 9 or something like that. There's no denying what he did, say, against Ohio State. Like you turn on that Ohio State game, he's just fantastic. But I do wonder about the injury history. I do wonder about sort of his role at the next level. So he's maybe a player that I'm a bit like in that. Say you've got the big 4 receivers, you put Kyle Pitts as his own hybrid type player. And then you get those guys like, Tony, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore. I'm kind of higher on the other 2 than I am Rondale Moore, but they're all pretty good. Trying to think of some other positions. I know we talked a little bit about the edge class. Gregory Rousseau. Oh, Carlos Basham is a guy that I've heard some like first round buzz on him. That I just don't see. Like I look at him and I see like he's like an okay like rotational rusher. Maybe somebody who could kick inside at times, but it seems like to me that he's just a player that he just wants to win to the inside. He just his move is basically I'm going to try to Euro step you and cut to the inside. Somebody with his strength, I would think would have a more refined pass rushing plan, some more bull rushes to his game. I haven't seen it. Maybe I missed it, but I haven't seen it. So he's somebody that I think I'm a bit lower on the consensus. I think that, I'm trying to think, but those would be the names that first come to mind there.
Are there any offensive linemen that you feel like are overrated, underrated, either way?
What's interesting is Alex Leatherwood, who I think could be a very good offensive tackle.
He's polarizing.
But he's extremely polarizing. I think he had a brutal Senior Bowl week. I mean, you watched him, and I remember talking to some people after watching him. I'm like, look, I'm not great when it comes to offensive line, but it seems to be like this is a dude that just couldn't block anybody all week. And people were just like, yeah, I mean, you just couldn't. I think he's better than what he showed that week. I don't know if he was just banged up, tired, whatever. So I'm kind of not giving up on him. I wouldn't touch him like in the first 2 rounds, maybe late on the second round, but I still think in this tackle class, like, because what we're seeing so often right now is, oh, this guy's a great tackle. Let's move him to guard. That's where he's going to be great. I think Leatherwood's a tackle. So I kind of would stick him there. Oh, Spencer Brown, the tackle from Northern Iowa?
Yeah. Monster athlete.
That kid can play. Like he's somebody that I should have mentioned in my band the table, but I do like that kid a lot. Deontay Brown's another one I like, that mammoth offensive guard from Alabama, who I thought moved better than I expected.
Well, for 365.
The fact that he could move, period, is better.
Yeah.
But no, I you've seen him climb to the second level on some combo blocks, some zone stuff, and I'm like, well, you know what? Like, you're not going to get him with a power move because you can't run through him. Like, you could put a speed move on him, but you're going to take a long pathway to get around him. That could work at the next level.
I really want to see him and Vita Vea in an Oklahoma drill just to see if the universe collapses in on itself.
Seriously. I mean, that's like one of those like Mayan prophecies where the world ends. That's how it does. Those two going head to head.
Pure impact. The crazy thing is you look at Deontay Brown and he's 364, and you look at Ben Cleveland and he's like 354.
That guy's the mountain, man.
That guy is the mountain. He is the personification of the mountain. And I don't know if you saw of course, all the pro day media stuff is all Zoom now. So he's at the podium and he's in an Under Armour. Shout out to Brady's company, right? He's in an Under Armour workout shirt and it is tight fitting. And that guy is cut. Yeah. Like he's 354 and he's cut. He's standing at the podium like this, so you can see his wings, and you're just like, dude, how are you 354 with that body comp? And he goes out and just bulldozes guys.
Yeah. It's a reminder. I mean, you guys have been down to the Senior Bowl. You're walking around the hotel. These are just different human beings.
Yeah. We talk about that a lot on this podcast.
I remember I was walking in, it was a couple of years ago. I was walking into the restroom behind Brian O'Neill, who's the tackle of Pittsburgh's now with the Vikings. And like, look, I'm 5'9" on a good day, but I'm just like staring at this kid's like waist. And it's just like, this is a superhuman. Like these are just different people. Okay. They're barely people. They're aliens. They're just, it's just mind-boggling when you get up close to these guys.
There was that video that came out of Tristan Wirfs today, and he's hang cleaning 405, like nothing, repeatedly.
Well, remember last year?
I do.
The videos of him hang cleaning like a true freshman, like 380 or something like that, and it's just like no.
And his thing is, he puts on the Instagram like, oh, 405 was moving today. I'm like, what? And he's flipping it around and he's just dropping it. And I'm like, if I did that, literally, it would be the Saturday Night Live skit and both shoulders would separate and I'd bleed to death.
Yeah. Keep in mind, isn't the record like 427? Something like that?
I've got a friend who's a Olympic level lifting instructor, and she actually has former NFL players in her gym. And so she's aware. She's an exercise science major at UW when she was there. And, so she teaches people to lift heavy weights all the time and works with former pro athletes. And I send her these, right? When there's stuff like that, when Rashawn Slater had that huge stack weight, and it's a front squat. Like, spoiler, front squat. And she was like, she texts back, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah. And this is somebody that sees very strong people in person all the time. And you send her this stuff, and you're right. It's a different level. They're aliens.
About the Slater front squat. First, he was doing it in the wire-rimmed glasses, which is that's just another level.
Elite.
But when it looked like he was going to rip his strength and conditioning coach's head off. Remember
okay, just for on him?
Yeah. He's like, he just shoves him, and then he gives him the second look like, touch me again, and I swear to God, I will kill you.
Like, I will separate your head from your body at this point. Don't do that again.
I will dismember you if you ever touch me again. So you can understand why he could go into a Big Ten championship game and handle Chase Young. So.
Yeah. It's different class. Anybody that's ever been on the sidelines for an NFL game, like actually on the sidelines, I've heard a lot of words to describe that. Having been there, the one I use is terrifying.
Oh, it's downright terrifying.
If you see full impact anywhere within 10 or 15 yards of you on the sideline, and it's two guys that really mean it and they're going at it and they hit each other as hard as they can at that size, at that speed, like you recoil. The sound, the ferocity, you're just like, oh,
and you think you have in your head, you think like, oh, I'll just be able to get out of the way if they're coming to this side. No, you can't. Like when I was in the Senior Bowl, it was not this last Senior Bowl, but the one before. I was on the sideline for the game because I went down with a press pass to take pictures before the game, and they just like never made me leave. So I was like just on the sideline for the game the whole time. So I was sitting in a corner like snapping video and stuff like that. And Jalen Hurts threw a touchdown to Juwan Jennings, and Juwan Jennings' knee was about 2 feet from my face because I was on the ground, and all of a sudden there's like 4 dudes that weigh 225 running straight at me. I was like, wow, I'm going to die. This is how I die. I'm just going to collapse in a pile of bodies. And somehow like they all missed me. But you don't realize how fast they're moving until you are in a position where you can't get out of the way.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it. The speed of these athletes now, when you've got guys like Slater that are that big and are 4'9" in the 40 or whatever.
Owe. Look at Jason Owe. He's really on 4'4", and he's what, 260?
4'3'9". He was like 100th percentile in the 40, 100th percentile in like the broad jump. It's just like when you're typing in 100th percentile next to some of these pro day numbers, I don't care if it's a pro day number. That's darn impressive. But then you see how big he is.
Yeah. No, just the mass and acceleration. I mean, you're looking at guys that, weigh as much as probably the biggest guy you saw in high school, 250, 260. And they're as fast as the fastest sprinter was in high school, who weighed like 175. And
that's why, like, whenever people say, like, I'll start talking about contracts and stuff, stand on the sidelines of an NFL game and then tell me what these guys are worth. Like,
it's unbelievable.
Because you can't do their job. You can't do what they do, but they can do what you do. For sure.
Literally, any one of these guys playing in the NFL could be just as bad a lawyer as I was in a blink of an eye. But I can't step on a field and do what they did. So I get it.
That's my favorite one, is all the fans like, I could play in the NFL. And then you show them one of these collisions, right? I was just watching Bobby Brown, the third, Texas A&M defensive tackle. And guy that's getting some buzz. He's a big dude. He's 6'4", 305. Like, he's a big dude, and he moves really fast. And there was a play against South Carolina where he takes his guard, and they're running pulling, H-back, whatever you want to call it. They're running a tight end across the formation from the tight side, his side. He grabs his guy and throws him into the puller. The puller's got like 2 steps. He takes his guy and just mashes him into the puller, and the two of those guys hit each other, and they're looking at each other like, what? I didn't do it, right? And the running back's supposedly coming through that hole, and he just shows up to this train wreck that happened like that fast and goes, oh my God, and basically just wilts. And Brown doesn't touch anybody, and he's just like, win. And you're like, that's Jesus. He just took a 300-pound guy that was bent on
lift people. Like, that's just not. But when you've got guys that are hang clean in 505 or whatever, like, they'll be able to do that.
I moved Joseph Ossai up a full round just for surviving Teven Jenkins.
Oh man, that was like, there were some fun battles to watch. Like, my favorite was getting a chance to go back when I was rewatching Jamar Chase to watch that 2019 Alabama LSU game. I mean,
I watched it last week.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you got? I write about it all the time. I'm like, this game is like scout and lore. Like, everybody I talk to like watched it like 25 times.
I don't know about you if you do this, but last year, and I said this to Brett, I start mouthing what the announcers are going to say.
Yeah.
Because you've heard it like 13 times in a row, right? Yeah. And you're like, and he makes the first. Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, what am I doing?
Like, but I can't tell you how many times I've heard Lane Kiffin just threw his clipboard in the air.
God, yes. But Jamar Chase versus Trayvon Diggs, like that was like,
that's a beating.
Drago, Christmas Day in Moscow, because those two, like, there was literally one snap, and I had actually listened to Vass and Kogan doing some saving stuff, and they were talking about club technique where you jam the receiver with the outside shoulder and 2-man, try to force him to the inside. And there was a snap where right at the snap, Diggs literally just lunges and 2-hand shoves Chase, just shoves him. I'm like, Vass, is this club technique? And Vass writes back, I think he just hates him. Like, I think that's all that it is.
At this point, he does.
The thing about it was Chase got open. Like,
because he grabbed him, threw him, and then just kept going.
It was incredible. But that, like you start watching these games and you watch them, they become lore. But like, Jenkins versus Ossai, like the fact that Ossai survived that, because Jenkins is a dude that wants to kill you too. Like, he's just a guy that's just like, my job is to obliterate you. And he does it while he's in his team photo. Again, maybe we should all add wire-rimmed glasses to our
the ultimate hit list.
Lineman, because Jenkins in his team photo has got the wire-rimmed glasses on, but he wants to rip your limbs off.
And he's totally open about that, which is one of my favorite things about him. He's like, oh, yeah, no, I definitely want to kill you.
I do.
And you see it in his tape. Like the one thing when we were talking to Brandon Thorne about Teven Jenkins that he said is that's not a rare occurrence, right? It happens all the time. It happens consistently. He puts guys out of the frame. He puts guys on the ground. Like that is his gig. And, you know, again, every offensive line coach in the NFL is going to be like, I want that. Give me one of those. I need to have one.
It's the Duke Manyweather finish it is non-negotiable, right?
Yeah.
Like you remember when there was that day when PFF, the guys were talking about how finish it is overrated, and then Duke pulled the Escalade over and recorded the video. One of my favorite Duke moments ever. But that's why. That's why, because
for sure,
this is an emotional game. It's in a game about emotion. And if you're going up against a guy that wants to do that to you, it will do that to you over and over and over again. Well, what's going to happen on 31 early in the fourth quarter? You're not going to want to be there.
No.
You don't want to do it again.
Yeah.
You don't want that smoke.
No.
I think my favorite play from that game, it was not when he put Ossai into the bench. It was like a couple plays after that, and they're running like a screen or something like that. And Teven immediately whips his eyes around in space to find Ossai in pursuit. And there's like four guys there. Everybody's like, nah, that's my bitch.
I want 46. I want 46, and I'm going to find him. Yeah.
And he gives a shoulder to the face. And I swear to God, Ossai turns into one of those like ragdoll physics dead bodies from Grand Theft Auto, where it's just... And I just saw this lifeless corpse fall to the ground. And I'm like, yeah, he hates his life at that point. He just... He didn't want to be there anymore. And like he still got 3 sacks that game, but like
but
it wasn't
the
a good
3 sacks of his life.
And they weren't on Jenkins.
No, it was like, did he get one against Jenkins?
Well, technically, they brought 0, and so Jenkins was peeking.
Yeah.
So it's like he was trying to block inside out, and then he tried to fan at the last moment, and Ossai just ran the widest arc you've ever seen in your life.
Like, I'm going to go all the way around this dude.
And the quarterback held the ball for like 5 seconds, and it was like 4th down. So I was like, what do you want? You know, I didn't consider that like a true rep loss, but I'm sure it made Ossai feel somewhat good.
Vindication, so he can at least go back to his buddies.
See, I told you.
He didn't own me all day. I got one against him. Really? You ran down the sideline to get it. Like it doesn't count.
Well, we really appreciate having you today, Mark. This was I think my favorite interview I've ever done. Before we let you get out of here, what do you got coming up? What can you promote for the fine bootleg audience to go check out?
Guys, this was a blast. I mean, anytime you can have a show sheet and just throw it out the window and just talk, because that's kind of what we did, and it was awesome. I love
sort of our MO.
Yeah, I loved every second of it. This was a blast. Thank you guys so much for having me. Top 11 at each position over at Touchdown Wire. My edges will go up on Friday. We're recording this Thursday. And then I got linebackers and corners next week. Then Doug and I will do things like best scheme fits, top 50. Yeah, it's pretty much draft season now. We're hanging on for dear life so we can get to the end of it, so we can get to Saturday night, and the draft is finally over. We can pour ourselves some stiff drinks and hit publish on all of our, way too early 2022 mock drafts, which will all.
Oh God, no!
Oh, believe me, I've got one in the works.
No, wait, Matt Corral, first overall, right? That's where we're at.
No, Matt Corral goes to the Bears. I've already said this. Matt Corral goes to the Bears.
One overall, EJ. How about that?
Yeah, I'll take him wherever you can get him. He's one of my guys for next year.
It's going to be a fun quarterback class.
No, Mark, can't thank you enough. This is tremendous. It's always great. If our listeners are not following your work, they really should be. Doug's as well. Doug Farrar, your colleague over there at Touchdown Wire at USA Today. So thank you so much for time in a busy season. We really appreciate it. And I have a feeling we're going to have you back on. It's just a weird sense I got.
I would love to come back anytime, friends. This was a blast.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Mark. Certainly one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. He's a great guy, does phenomenal work. Again, I can't recommend his stuff enough. One of my favorite episodes of Bootleg we've had in the year plus of doing this now. So again, hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll be back next week with another interview with a huge heavy hitter. We recorded with Dane Brugler last week, so we're going to be putting that one out. He puts out arguably the most comprehensive draft guide really anywhere. He watches more people than anybody else. So Dane's a great interview. We'll have that coming out soon. And until then, we'll see you later.